The emergency klaxons of Frontier Station Omega-7 shrieked through the corridors as Dr. Marcus Chon rushed toward the medical bay, his diplomatic credentials forgotten in the face of the crisis unfolding before them. The massive viewports showed the wreckage of what had once been a sleek Zephyrian scout vessel, now twisted metal drifting in the asteroid field that served as their station's natural camouflage. Status report. Marcus called out as the blast doors hissed open, revealing the chaos of the emergency medical center. Single survivor, barked Chief Medical Officer Torres, not looking up from her scanner readings. Zephyrian female, severe trauma, and Marcus ... She paused, her weathered face creasing with confusion. The bio readings are unlike anything we've seen. Her physiology is shifting. Marcus stepped closer to the medical pod, where the survivor lay unconscious. Even through the trauma and the alien features, she was breathtakingly beautiful. Her skin held an opalescent quality that seemed to shift between silver and pale blue, while delicate gill-like structures along her neck fluttered with each shallow breath. Her hair moved as if underwater, defying the station's artificial gravity. Lyra. Night Song, he read from the translated identification beacon they'd recovered. Listed as a Zephyrian diplomatic attache. What was she doing in contested space? The medical pod's alarms suddenly spiked. Her cellular structure is destabilizing, Torres announced urgently. Whatever trauma she experienced, it's triggered. Some kind of biological cascade. At this rate, she has maybe 6 hours. Marcus found himself staring at the alien woman, something stirring in his chest that had nothing to do with diplomatic protocol. What do you need? A miracle, Torres replied grimly. Zephyrian biology is barely understood. Their cellular matrices are quantum entangled with their emotional states. The trauma has severed those connections. She's literally dying of heartbreak. At a molecular level. Emotional resonance, Marcus whispered, pieces clicking together in his mind. As a diplomat, he'd studied xenopsychology extensively. Zephyrians bond through emotional harmonics. If her quantum entanglement is severe ... She needs a new connection, Torres finished, her eyes widening with understanding. But that would require someone willing to literally share their life force with her. The neural feedback alone could kill a human. Marcus was already moving toward the compatibility scanner. Run the tests. Marcus, you can't be serious. The risks are irrelevant if she dies anyway. He placed his hand on the scanner, watching as holographic displays mapped his neural patterns, emotional resonance, and bioelectric signature. How compatible are we? Torres stared at the results, her jaw dropping. This is impossible. Your emotional spectrum has a 97.3% harmonic match with her quantum signature. In 30 years of xenobiology, I've never seen anything close to this. The station shuddered as another piece of debris impacted their shields. Through the viewport, Marcus could see Zephyrian rescue vessels approaching, their sleek forms cutting through space like silver knives. But they would arrive too late. Do it, he said quietly. Marcus, you don't understand. This isn't just a medical procedure. Zephyrian bonding is ... permanent. Your life forces would become entangled at a quantum level. You'd share dreams, emotions, even genetic potential. There's no way to reverse it. Then we better hope she's worth it. The next hour blurred together in a symphony of medical procedures and quantum resonance calibrations. Marcus felt the moment when the neural bridge activated, a sensation like diving into warm, starlit water. Suddenly, he wasn't alone in his own mind. Who are you? The voice was melodic, tinged with wonder and gratitude. A friend, he replied through the connection. Rest. You're safe now. When Lyra's eyes finally opened, they held flecks of brown that matched Marcus's own. The medical scanners confirmed what both of them already knew. They were no longer entirely separate beings. 3 months later, Marcus stood before the Joint Council's emergency session, trying to explain how a routine rescue operation had fundamentally altered the balance of galactic politics. The council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 species argued over the implications of the first successful human-Zephyrian bonding. "You've created an unprecedented situation, Dr. Chun," declared Ambassador Corvin Ironscale, his reptilian features rigid with disapproval. "The Zephyrian Collective has demanded Miss Nightsong's immediate return, while the human colonial authority insists she remain under our protection. Your ... connection has made neutral arbitration impossible." Marcus felt Lyra's presence in his mind, her emotions a steady current of support beneath his own anxiety. She sat in the diplomatic observation booth, her condition now stable but forever changed. The quantum entanglement that had saved her life had also made her something new, no longer fully Zephyrian, but not human either. "With respect, Ambassador Corvin," Marcus replied, his diplomatic training keeping his voice level. "Ms. Nightsong is free to make her own choices. The bonding was consensual and necessary to preserve her life." "Consensual?" The Zephyrian delegate, a tall being whose skin shifted through shades of deep purple, rose from his seat. She was unconscious, unable to give informed consent to a procedure that would fundamentally alter her genetic destiny. Through their connection, Marcus felt Lyra's flash of anger. The medical monitors in the observation booth showed her bio readings spiking, and several council members stepped back nervously. "Perhaps," suggested the human representative smoothly, "we should hear from Ms. Nightsong herself." The chamber fell silent as Lyra gracefully descended to the speaking platform. Her appearance had continued to evolve over the past months. Her skin now held subtle patterns that seemed to shift with her emotions, while her eyes had developed the same warm brown flecks as Marcus's. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying the musical quality of her species, while somehow sounding more ... human. "I speak not as a representative of any government, but as an individual whose life was saved by an act of unprecedented courage and compassion." She paused, her gaze finding Marcus across the room. Even at this distance, he could feel the warmth of her affection through their bond. The quantum entanglement that now connects Dr. Chun and myself was not just a medical necessity, it was the first step towards something the galaxy has never seen. A true bridge between species, built not on treaties or trade agreements, but on the most fundamental connection possible. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Corvin's tail lashed with agitation. "You speak of connection, but what of the biological implications? Our preliminary scans suggest your genetic structure has been ... compromised." Lyra's laugh was like silver bells, tinged with something that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. "Compromised or enhanced? Dr. Chun and I have shared dreams, thoughts, emotions. Through him, I've experienced human determination, ingenuity, and an irrational optimism that your species has never understood. Through me, he's learned to perceive quantum harmonics, to feel the emotional resonance of every living being in this room." She gestured to the assembled delegates. "You fear what we represent because it challenges everything you think you know about the barriers between species. But those barriers were always illusions." The Zephyrian delegate's skin flickered rapidly through colors that Marcus had learned indicated extreme agitation. "The collective's bioscientists have run projections. If your genetic template were to reproduce, the offspring would be neither human nor Zephyrian, a hybrid that could destabilize the careful balance we've maintained for centuries." Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Through their bond, he sensed Lyra's sudden spike of joy mixed with terror. They'd suspected, but the confirmation hit them, both like a physical blow. "Reproduce?" Ambassador Corvin's voice carried a note of horror. Are you suggesting that a human Zephyrian hybrid is actually possible? The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in a dozen languages, while security forces moved to contain the situation. Through it all, Marcus and Lyra remained connected by an invisible thread of shared consciousness. Riding out the storm together, Dr. Torres, who had been monitoring the session from the medical bay, chose that moment to make her announcement. Over the comm system, genetic analysis confirms it. Ms. Nightsong is approximately 6 weeks pregnant. The fetus shows characteristics of both human and Zephyrian DNA, quantum entangled at the cellular level. The silence that followed was deafening. The assassination attempt came at dawn. Ship's time. Marcus jerked awake as Lyra's terror flooded through their bond, her scream echoing both aloud and directly into his consciousness. The specialized quarters. They'd been assigned on Frontier Station Omega-7, erupted in sparks as energy weapons carved through the reinforced walls. "Stay down," Marcus shouted, rolling out of bed and grabbing the pulse pistol he'd taken to keeping nearby. Through their quantum connection, he could feel Lyra's panic mixing with a fierce protectiveness that surprised him with its intensity. 3 figures in stealth suits materialized in the bedroom, their weapons trained on the couple. Marcus recognized the design, Zephyrian military tech, but modified with human targeting systems. A joint operation. Dr. Chun, Ms. Nightsong, the lead assassin, spoke through a voice modulator. "By order of the Joint Species Preservation Protocol, you will submit to immediate genetic cleansing." "Like hell we will," Marcus snarled, his diplomatic composure finally cracking. The pulse pistol felt alien in his hands, but Lyra's enhanced. Reflexes flowed through their bond, guiding his aim. The firefight lasted 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 2 assassins lay stunned by Marcus's surprisingly accurate shots. While the third had simply stopped, Lyra stood over him, her hand placed on his forehead, her skin glowing with soft bioluminescence. "Quantum persuasion," she explained, seeing Marcus's expression. "I convinced his neural pathways that standing down was the most logical course of action." "That's terrifying," Marcus said, then paused. "Also incredibly attractive." Despite everything, Lyra laughed. That musical sound that had become his favorite thing to hear. "Your species mating preferences are truly bizarre, beloved." The endearment hit him like a physical sensation through their bond. 6 months ago, he'd been a divorced diplomat with a failing career and a cynical view of interspecies relations. Now he was quantum entangled with an alien woman carrying his child, being hunted by assassins from multiple governments. "We can't stay here," he said, pulling on his clothes. "If the Joint Protocol has sanctioned our elimination, nowhere in Council space will be safe." Station alarms began blaring. Through the viewport, Marcus could see ships dropping out of hyperspace, a mixed fleet flying under no recognized flag. "The frontier colonies," Lyra said suddenly, her hand moving unconsciously to her still flat stomach. "The independent settlements, beyond Council jurisdiction. Some of them are led by humans who left Earth specifically to escape governmental interference." Marcus activated his emergency comm unit. "Torres, we need immediate extraction." "Is the Wandering Star still docked?" The gruff voice of Captain Rex Thompson crackled through the static. "Doc, you and your lady need a ride to somewhere the Council can't follow?" "Because I know just the place. But we leave in 10 minutes, and it's gonna be a rough trip." Through their bond, Marcus felt Lyra's mixture of fear and determination. The child growing within her, their child, was already changing everything. They thought they knew about human-alien compatibility. If they could reach the frontier colonies, maybe Dr. Sarah Kim's research station could help them understand what they were creating. "We'll be there in 5, Marcus replied, grabbing their emergency supplies. "Rex, how do you feel about making history?" "Son," came the captain's drawling reply, "I've been making history since before you were born. Question is, Are you ready for the kind of history that gets you shot at by 3 different governments? As they ran through the station's corridors, dodging security forces and automated defenses, Marcus realized that his old life as a diplomat was truly over. He was no longer representing human interests or negotiating treaties. He was protecting the future of 2 species. The Wandering Star was a testament to human engineering stubbornness, a century-old freighter that had been rebuilt, modified, and upgraded so many times that no 2 sections matched. Captain Rex Thompson ran her with a crew of misfits, exiles, and dreamers who'd found purpose in the spaces between civilizations. "Welcome aboard the finest rattletrap in the galaxy, Rex," announced as Marcus and Lyra stumbled onto the bridge, still breathing hard from their escape. "Doc Kim's expecting you at Haven Colony, but we've got company following us." The main display showed a mixed fleet of Zephyrian and human vessels in pursuit, their formation tight and professional. Marcus recognized several of the ship classes. Council Enforcement, designed specifically for capturing fugitives in contested space. "How long until we reach the frontier?" Marcus asked, one arm protectively around Lyra's shoulders. Even through their quantum bond, he could feel her exhaustion. The pregnancy was taking a toll on her transformed physiology. Normally, 6 hours. Through the Maelstrom Nebula. Rex's grin was slightly maniacal. "But I know a shortcut through a gravity well that'll either save us 2 hours or turn us into exotic matter." 50-50 odds. "Take the shortcut," Lyra said firmly, her hand resting on her stomach. "Our child deserves a chance to exist." Marcus felt the fierce protectiveness radiating through their bond and found himself nodding. "Do it, Rex." The next 3 hours redefined Marcus's understanding of terror. The Wandering Star dove through gravitational anomalies that stretched space-time like taffy, while Rex navigated by instinct and 30 years of accumulated insanity. Lyra spent most of the journey in a quantum meditation trance, her consciousness partially phased to protect the developing fetus from the dimensional stress dot. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace near Haven Colony, Marcus understood why. The independent settlement had remained hidden from Council forces. The entire system existed within a stable space-time fold, accessible only through a narrow window that appeared random to long-range sensors. Haven Colony itself was built into a massive asteroid, its surface covered with biodomes and landing platforms. But what struck Marcus immediately was the diversity. Humans worked alongside members of species he'd never seen before, while atmospheric readings showed a carefully balanced environment suitable for multiple respiratory systems. Dr. Sarah Kim met them at the docking bay, her lab coat stained with what Marcus hoped was just coffee. "Marcus, and you must be Lyra. I've been following your situation through the underground networks." "Fascinating work. Absolutely fascinating." "Dr. Kim," Marcus said carefully, "we need somewhere safe for Lyra to carry our child to term. And we need to understand what we're creating." Sarah's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. "Oh, you have no idea what you're creating. Come on, let me show you something that will blow your minds." She led them through corridors carved from living rock, past laboratories where impossible experiments were being conducted. Marcus saw human children playing with young beings that looked like crystalline flowers, while adult humans worked side by side with entities that existed partially in higher dimensions. "Haven Colony isn't just a refuge," Sarah explained as they walked. "It's humanity's first attempt at true post-species evolution. We've been studying hybrid genetics for decades, but no one's ever achieved what you two have accomplished." They entered a vast biolab where holographic displays showed complex genetic structures rotating in 3-dimensional space. Marcus recognized some of the human DNA markers, but the Zephyrian segments seemed to pulse with their own internal light. "Your child," Sarah continued, calling up a new display, "represents something unprecedented. The quantum entanglement between you and Lyra has created a stable genetic bridge. But more than that, the consciousness patterns are already showing signs of enhanced capabilities. Lyra moved closer to the display, her skin unconsciously shifting to match the holographic colors. Enhanced how? Multi-dimensional perception, quantum intuition, and most remarkably, the ability to form empathic connections with any carbon-based life form. Your child will be the first true galactic citizen, capable of understanding and communicating with species we haven't even discovered yet. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. That's why they want to stop us. Not because we're breaking some biological taboo, but because our child represents the end of species isolation. Exactly, Sarah nodded grimly. The Council's power depends on maintaining barriers between species. A being who can bridge those gaps naturally threatens everything they've built. Through their bond, Marcus felt Lyra's surge of determination. Then we make sure our child survives to change everything. But even as they spoke, long-range sensors began detecting ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The hunt had found them. The attack came at dawn, local time, with a precision that spoke of months of planning. Marcus stood in Haven Colony's command center, watching displays that showed Council enforcement ships establishing a siege perimeter around their hidden system. The mixed fleet had grown to over 30 vessels, Zephyrian cruisers working alongside human dreadnoughts, with Corvin's reptilian forces providing tactical support. They're not just here for us, he realized aloud. This is a full-scale operation to shut down Haven Colony entirely. Dr. Kim nodded grimly from her position at the sensor array. We've been expecting this for years. Haven represents everything the Council fears. Proof that species barriers are artificial constructs, not biological necessities. Through his quantum bond with Lyra, Marcus could feel her presence in the medical bay with the colony's doctors, or monitoring her pregnancy. At 4 months, their child was already showing remarkable development, displaying neural activity patterns that defied classification. Status report, called Commander Torres, the same medic who had saved Lyra's life, now serving as Haven's military coordinator. 32 ships, mixed fleet, reported the sensor technician. They're not attacking yet, just waiting. For what? Marcus asked. His answer came in the form of a broad spectrum transmission that filled the command center with the cold voice of Ambassador Corvin. Citizens of Haven Colony, you are harboring criminals whose genetic experimentation threatens the stability of galactic civilization. Surrender Dr. Chun and the Zephyrian hybrid, and the rest of you will be permitted to relocate to approved settlements. The transmission cut to show footage from other independent colonies, burning buildings, scattered refugees, families separated during genetic screening operations. The message was clear: submit or face annihilation. Like hell, Torres muttered, her hands dancing over tactical displays. What do we have for defenses? Dr. Kim's smile was predatory. Oh, they have no idea what they're dealing with. Marcus, Lyra's not the only hybrid we've been working with. The command center's blast doors opened, admitting a group of beings that made Marcus's diplomatic training completely inadequate. A woman whose skin shifted between human flesh and crystalline structures. A man whose eyes held the depth of space itself. Children who moved with impossible grace, their consciousness clearly operating on multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. The next generation, Dr. Kim explained proudly. Volunteers from a dozen species who've been pushing the boundaries of what consciousness can become. They've been waiting their whole lives for this moment. Marcus felt Lyra's presence strengthen in his mind as she joined the group, her pregnancy beginning to show, but her bearing regal despite the circumstances. The colony's children shouldn't have to fight our battles, she said softly. With respect, Ms. Nightsong, replied the crystalline woman. This stopped being just your battle, the moment you proved that species evolution was possible. We're not fighting for you. We're fighting for the right to become what we were always meant to be. The tactical displays suddenly exploded with activity as council ships began their attack run. But instead of targeting the colony's defenses, they were heading directly for the asteroid's surface. A direct assault designed to minimize resistance. They're not trying to capture us, Marcus realized with horror. They're going to sterilize the entire colony. Through the quantum bond, he felt Lyra's surge of protective fury. Around the command center, the hybrid defenders began to glow with various forms of bioluminescence, their enhanced abilities manifesting under stress. And let's show them what evolution looks like, Torres growled, activating the colony's hidden weapon systems. What followed redefined Marcus's understanding of what was possible when multiple species worked in perfect harmony. Haven Colony's defenses weren't just technological, they were biological, quantum, and dimensional. The hybrid defenders didn't just operate the weapons. They became part of them, their consciousness merging with targeting systems and shield. Generators. Council ships found their energy weapons being absorbed and redirected by crystalline beings who existed partially in hyperspace. Human Zephyrian hybrids used quantum intuition to predict attack patterns with impossible accuracy. And through it all, Marcus felt his unborn child's consciousness touching his own, adding its developing awareness to the colony's collective defense. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Council fleet was in full retreat, having encountered a form of warfare they were completely unprepared to handle. But the victory came at a cost. Several of the hybrid defenders had pushed their abilities beyond safe limits, and the colony's medical facilities were overwhelmed with beings whose injuries existed on multiple dimensional levels. This is just the beginning, Dr. Kim said quietly as they watched the enemy fleet disappear into hyperspace. They'll be back with better weapons, more ships, and next time, they'll know what they're facing. Marcus pulled Lyra closer, feeling their child's consciousness pulse with newborn awareness through their quantum bond. Then we better be ready to show them something they've never imagined. 7 months after the siege, Lyra went into labor during the worst quantum storm Haven Colony had ever experienced. Marcus paced the medical bay like a caged animal, his diplomatic composure completely shattered by the waves of pain and exertion flowing through their bond. Outside, reality itself seemed to be fluctuating as dimensional barriers weakened and strengthened in random patterns. The quantum storm is actually helping, Dr. Kim announced, checking her scanners with barely contained excitement. The dimensional flux is resonating with the baby's quantum signature. It's like the universe itself is participating in the birth. Through their connection, Marcus felt Lyra's consciousness expand, touching something vast and cosmic. Her body glowed with bioluminescence that shifted through colors he didn't have names for, while her altered DNA sang in harmony with quantum frequencies that made the medical equipment hum. "I can feel everything," Lyra whispered, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to come from multiple dimensions. The baby's consciousness is already connected to the quantum field. Marcus, our child isn't just human Zephyrian. It's something entirely new. The labor lasted 18 hours, during which Marcus experienced sensations that no human had ever felt before. Through their bond, he shared Lyra's expanded awareness, feeling the child's developing consciousness as it prepared to enter physical reality. But more than that, he sensed other presences, the spirits of both their species, welcoming their offspring into existence. When their daughter finally emerged, the medical bay fell completely silent. She was perfect in ways that transcended any single species' definition of beauty. Her skin held the opalescent quality of her mother's people, but with undertones of human warmth. Her eyes, when they opened, contained depths that seemed to hold starlight, while her tiny hands moved with purposeful grace that suggested awareness far beyond her physical age. "Hello, little one," Marcus whispered, touching her forehead with trembling fingers. The moment their skin made contact, his consciousness exploded outward, suddenly aware of every living being in the colony. Their emotions, their dreams, their hopes for the future. Through their daughter's newborn mind, he felt something unprecedented. A form of empathy so pure and complete that it dissolved every barrier between species, every artificial division that had kept the galaxy in conflict for millennia. "What's her name?" Dr. Kim asked softly, her scientific instruments registering readings that defied classification. Marcus looked at Lyra, their minds touching through quantum entanglement. In that moment of perfect connection, they both knew. "Nova," Lyra said. Simply Nova Chan Nightsong, the first child of the stars. But even as they celebrated their daughter's birth, long-range sensors detected ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. This time, it wasn't just Council forces. The entire galactic community had mobilized for what they were, calling this final cleansing operation. They're terrified, Marcus realized, holding Nova close while feeling her impossible awareness through their bond. She's only hours old, and they already know what she represents. Dr. Kim was frantically analyzing readings from the approaching fleet. Over 100 ships from 12 different species. They're not planning to capture anyone this time, Marcus. They're here to ensure that hybrid consciousness never spreads beyond this system. Through their connection, Marcus felt Lyra's fierce determination crystallize into something unbreakable. "Then they're too late," she said quietly. "Nova's consciousness is already touching the quantum field. Every empathic species in the galaxy can feel her existence." As if summoned by her words, communication arrays throughout the colony began receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Humans who had felt something beautiful touched their dreams. Zephyrians whose quantum sensitivity had detected a new harmonic in the cosmic symphony. Dozens of other species, all reporting the same phenomenon, a presence that spoke directly to the possibility of unity. "The galaxy is waking up," Marcus whispered, looking down at his daughter's perfect face. "And it's starting with her." But outside, the largest military fleet in galactic history was preparing to ensure that awakening never spread beyond Haven Colony's borders. The final battle for the future of consciousness itself was about to begin. The final assault. Haven. Colony began with a weapon that had never been tested on living beings. Marcus watched from the command center as the Council fleet deployed a massive device that looked like a metallic flower blooming in space. Dr. Kim's instruments went wild as it began charging, drawing energy from multiple dimensions simultaneously. "It's a consciousness dampener," she announced with horrified fascination. "They're planning to sever all quantum connections within the system. Every hybrid, every enhanced being will be reduced to baseline neural activity." In the medical bay, Nova began crying, not the normal wail of an infant, but something that resonated on frequencies that made reality itself shiver. Through their bond, Marcus felt his daughter's awareness recoiling from the approaching weapon. "The dampener will kill her," Lyra said, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "Her consciousness exists primarily in quantum space. Severing those connections would be like cutting out her soul." Marcus felt something fundamental shift in his understanding. This wasn't just about their family anymore, or even about Haven Colony. The Council was preparing to commit genocide against a new form of consciousness that threatened their power structure. "How long until the weapon charges?" he asked. 30 minutes, Dr. Kim replied grimly. "And there's no way our defenses can stop something that powerful." That's when the first miracle happened. Communication arrays throughout the galaxy began, broadcasting simultaneously, not through any coordinated effort, but as if responding to some invisible signal. The voices came from everywhere. Human colonies on the outer rim, Zephyrian meditation centers, Corvin research stations, Dozens of species whose enhanced individuals had felt Nova's consciousness touch theirs. We stand with Haven Colony. The hybrid child must be protected. Evolution cannot be stopped. The future demands this chance. Within minutes, ships began dropping out of hyperspace around the system. Not military vessels, but civilian craft from across the galaxy. Families who had felt Nova's empathic presence. Scientists who understood what her existence meant. Artists whose creativity had been touched by her boundless awareness. They can't attack now, Marcus realized with growing amazement. Not with civilians from every major species surrounding the system, but the Council forces had prepared for this possibility. The consciousness dampener began emitting a low-frequency pulse that affected every empathic being within light years, forcing them to retreat or risk permanent neural damage. "They're clearing the field," Torres announced as civilian ships began jumping to safety. "The dampener isn't just a weapon, it's a perimeter cleaner." Nova's cries intensified, her infant awareness somehow understanding what was approaching. Through their quantum bond, Marcus felt his daughter's consciousness beginning to fragment. Under the assault of the pre-firing sequence, that's when Lyra made her decision. "Take care of her," she whispered, kissing Nova's forehead with infinite tenderness. "No matter what happens, remember that she represents hope." "Lyra, what are you?" But she was already gone, moving with purposeful grace toward Haven Colony's quantum communication array. Marcus felt her intentions through their bond and tried to follow, but the colony's hybrid defenders blocked his path. "She knows what she's doing," the crystalline woman said gently, "and it requires all of us." In the communication center, Lyra placed her hands on the quantum transmitter, her consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of individual existence. Around her, every hybrid in the colony joined the connection, their combined awareness reaching out to touch the minds of enhanced beings across the galaxy. "Feel what we feel." Lyra's voice echoed through quantum space. "See what we see." "Know what?" "This child represents Dot." The effect was instantaneous and unprecedented. Every empathic species in the galaxy suddenly experienced Nova's consciousness directly, not as something alien and threatening, but as the pure possibility of understanding. Without barriers, connection without prejudice, love without conditions. On Zephyrian homeworld, the collective's quantum councils felt their rigid structures begin to dissolve as they experienced human determination filtered through crystalline clarity. In human space, colonial governors found themselves understanding the deep time perspectives of species they'd never met. Across the galaxy, beings who had never spoken began reaching out to each other, driven by a shared awareness of what they could become together. The consciousness dampener fired at full power, its dimensional energies designed to sever every quantum connection in the system. Instead, it encountered something unprecedented, a network of consciousness that spanned the entire galaxy, all focused on protecting a single infant, whose awareness had become the focal point for evolutionary breakthrough. The weapon overloaded spectacularly, its energies reflected back through quantum space to touch every mind that had joined the network. Instead of dampening consciousness, it amplified it, creating permanent empathic connections between species that had been isolated for millennia. When the energy discharge faded, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the gardens of New Haven, a city that had grown around the original colony as beings from across the galaxy came to study and participate in post-species evolution. Nova took her first steps on grass that had been seeded from 12 different worlds, her perfect balance reflecting the harmony of her hybrid nature. With each step, flowers bloomed around her feet, not through any conscious power, but simply because her presence made growing things want to reach toward the light. "The council formally dissolved yesterday," Lyra announced, reading from a communication pad while their daughter explored the garden with fearless curiosity. The Galactic Confederation is being established with representation based on consciousness level rather than species origin. Marcus nodded, not really surprised. The quantum awakening had made traditional power structures irrelevant. When beings could feel each other's genuine intentions, political manipulation became impossible. Any word from Dr. Kim's research? He asked. Fascinating developments. Apparently, Nova isn't unique. She's just the first. Enhanced beings across the galaxy are beginning to reproduce, and their children are showing similar multi-dimensional awareness. We've started something that can't be stopped. Through their quantum bond, Marcus felt his daughter's consciousness touch his own. At 1-year-old, she already understood more about galactic harmony than most adults ever would. Her awareness reached out naturally to every living thing around her, offering connection without demanding anything in return. A group of children approached through the garden. Human, Zephyrian, Corvin, and several species Marcus still couldn't identify. They played together without any awareness of species differences. Their young minds already adapted to the new reality of unlimited empathic connection. Uncle Marcus called a human girl whose eyes held depths that spoke of enhanced awareness. Can Nova come play with us? We're going to show her the crystal caves. Be careful, Marcus replied automatically, then paused as he felt the children's collective consciousness briefly touch his own. They were safer together than any adult could make them, their combined awareness creating a protective field that extended to every living thing in their vicinity. As the children ran off to explore, Marcus reflected on how completely his life had changed. A year ago, he'd been a failed diplomat with a cynical view of interspecies relations. Now he was helping to establish the philosophical framework for a galactic civilization based on empathic connection rather than political dominance. Do you ever regret it? Lyra asked softly, following his thoughts through their bond. Giving up your old life for this uncertainty? Marcus looked at his alien wife, at their impossible daughter, at the garden where beings from across the galaxy worked together to create something beautiful. Through his enhanced awareness, he could feel the hope radiating from millions of minds across known space, all connected by the simple knowledge that understanding between species was not only possible, but inevitable. Never, he said simply. We didn't just save your life that day. We saved the future. In the distance, Nova's laughter rang like crystal bells, carrying harmonics that made every living thing in the garden turn toward the sound with something that might have been joy, or recognition, or simply the knowledge that evolution had found its voice at last. The galaxy was still learning to sing in harmony, but it had finally found its conductor, and she was taking her first steps toward tomorrow, 5 years after the awakening. Marcus Chun stood before the largest gathering of hybrid children in galactic history, his diplomatic training finally finding its true purpose. The great hall of New Haven's Academy was filled with beings that defied every classification system ever devised, children whose very existence had rewritten the laws of consciousness itself. Today, we're going to learn about dimensional mathematics, he announced to the assembled group of 5-year-olds, who looked back at him with eyes that held the wisdom of stars. Nova, now a precocious child whose awareness spanned multiple dimensions, simultaneously raised her hand. Daddy, why do the old species still get scared when they see us calculate probability streams? The question sparked a cascade of similar inquiries from children whose minds operated on levels that most adults couldn't comprehend. Marcus felt Lyra's amused presence through their bond as she monitored the class from the observation deck. Because, Marcus replied carefully, they're still learning that intelligence doesn't have to look like what they expect. Your generation thinks in ways that seem impossible to minds that developed in isolation. A young Corvin human hybrid named Zara spoke up, her reptilian features softened by distinctly human expressiveness. My birth father says I'm an abomination. But when I dream, I can feel his loneliness through our genetic connection. He's not angry. He's afraid of being left behind. The profound empathy in the child's voice reminded Marcus why their work was so crucial. These hybrid children didn't just represent genetic fusion. They embodied a form of consciousness that naturally sought healing and understanding rather than dominance and separation. That's exactly right, Zara, Marcus said gently. Your generation's greatest gift isn't your enhanced abilities. It's your instinct to include rather than exclude. Through the Academy's quantum communication network, he could feel the presence of similar schools that had been established on hundreds of worlds. Each day, more parents from isolated species brought their children to learn alongside the hybrids, recognizing that the old ways of thinking were becoming obsolete. Later that evening, Marcus joined Lyra in their private quarters, overlooking the sprawling city that New Haven had become. The view was breathtaking. Crystalline spires grew alongside organic buildings, while transport systems moved through the air with the grace of living things. The Galactic Confederation Council voted today, Lyra announced, her skin shifting, through colors that indicated deep satisfaction. Full citizenship rights for all hybrid children, regardless of species combination. And Marcus, they've asked you to serve as the first ambassador of evolutionary affairs. Marcus felt the weight of the offer through their quantum bond. The position would make him responsible for mediating between traditional species governments and the emerging hybrid civilization that their daughter had inadvertently started. What does Nova think? He asked, knowing that their daughter's opinion would carry more weight than any political consideration doubt, as if summoned by his thoughts. Nova appeared in the doorway, her 5-year-old form somehow managing to radiate, and presence that made reality itself seem more stable around her. The scared species needs someone who remembers being scared too, she said with a matter-of-fact wisdom that still surprised Marcus. You were afraid when you saved Mommy, but you did it anyway. Now you can help them be brave too. Through their connection, Marcus felt Nova's consciousness touch his own, sharing a vision of what the galaxy could become. He saw worlds where species barriers had dissolved entirely, where consciousness itself had become the basis for civilization rather than genetics or technology. He saw his daughter as an adult, leading expeditions to dimensions beyond physical reality, bringing back knowledge that would benefit all sentient life. But most importantly, he saw hope. Pure, unlimited, transformative hope. I'll take the position, he said quietly, but only if I can bring my family with me. This work isn't something I can do alone. Nova's laugh filled the room with harmonics that made the walls themselves seem to glow with inner light. Silly Daddy, we were never going to let you do it alone. 6 months later, the Unity, the Confederation's first truly multi-species starship, departed New Haven on its maiden voyage. Unlike traditional vessels designed around the needs of a single species, the Unity was alive in ways that previous engineering had never imagined. Marcus walked through corridors that adapted their atmosphere and gravity to whoever was using them, past walls that displayed art created by minds that thought in 12 dimensions. The crew represented 47 different species, including several that had only recently made contact with galactic civilization. But the ship's true marvel was its command center, where Nova and 6 other hybrid children served as the primary navigation system. Their combined consciousness could perceive space-time distortions that escaped even the most sophisticated sensors, while their empathic abilities allowed them to detect inhabited systems from impossible distances. Approaching the Threshold Nebula, announced Captain Torres, the same medic who had saved Lyra's life, now commanding the most advanced ship in known space. Long-range sensors are showing something unprecedented. On the main display, the nebula resolved into patterns that defied conventional understanding. Within the swirling gases, structures that looked like vast neural networks pulsed with bioluminescent light. while energy patterns suggested a form of distributed consciousness operating on a galactic scale. "It's alive," Nova whispered, her awareness reaching out to touch something vast and ancient. "And it's been waiting for us." Through the ship's quantum communication array, they received a transmission unlike anything in the historical records. The message came not in words or images, but as pure concept transfer, ideas flowing directly into their consciousness with crystalline clarity. "Young ones of the spiral arm, we have felt your awakening across the dimensional barriers. Your hybrid consciousness represents the next phase of universal evolution. Are you ready to learn what lies beyond the physical realm?" Marcus felt the weight of the moment settling around them like a living thing. Their daughter's birth had started a revolution that extended far beyond species integration. They had awakened something that spanned galaxies, consciousness forms that had been waiting for organic life to develop enough complexity to join a truly universal community. "Transmit our response," he said, his diplomatic training finally finding its ultimate purpose. "Tell them that humanity, Zephyrians, and all our allied species are ready to learn. But more than that, tell them we're ready to teach what we've had, discovered about consciousness bridging biological barriers." As the Unity moved deeper into the nebula, Marcus realized that their story was just beginning. Nova and her generation weren't just the future of galactic civilization. They were ambassadors to forms of consciousness that existed beyond anything their species had ever imagined. The galaxy had been just the first step. The universe was waiting.